Tonight's Senate inquiry on the milk pricing continues. WA police taser usage has fallen dramatically after policy changes. Good evening, thanks for your company.
Also tonight, Coronial inquest continues into the Christmas Island boat tragedy. And Dalai Lama stepped down as an exiled Tibetan leader.
The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has come under fire as it admitted that in the Senate inquiry it has communicated with Coles about its milk pricing strategies. Rival competitor Woolworths has admitted that milk discounts will have an impact on prices for dairy farmers.
The consumer watchdog appeared before the inquiry at Sydney in response to a discounting war played by Coles and other supermarkets last month, dropping prices of home brand milk to $1 a litre. Mr. Cassidy admitted communicating with Coles since the Australia Day price cuts. He clarified that there were no evidence on whether milk was sold below cost price or that farmers felt the price cuts. Woolworths commented that the milk discounts had affected the farmers and it will not be sustainable for the dairy industry with the rapid price drop. Chairman of the National Association of Retail Grocers, John Cummings, said that milk producers have to increase prices on other dairy products such as yogurt and ice cream to recoup costs. Independent Senator Nick Xenophon said the ACCC needs to do a lot more to make sure that heavy milk discounting does not lead to the demise of the dairy industry. Richie Lee, DHK News.
New figures reveal taser usage by Western Australian Police has plummeted since changes to the force's policy on their use. There has also been a drop in how often police have actually discharged the tasers. The Commissioner says the figures show a change in the attitudes and behaviour of the police.
In December last year, the Police Commissioner, Carl O'Callaghan, changed the taser use policy to stipulate that officers only use the weapons to prevent serious injury. He said after the introduction of the policy, there is a 60% drop on taser usage. The change was introduced as an interim measure and will mean officers have to believe they are at risk of serious injury before using a taser. It came in the wake of video evidence released by the Corruption and Crime Commission showing Kevin Spratt being tasered dozens of times while in police custody. In the 2 months before December, tasers were discharged 145 times by police officers. But in the 2 months since, the weapons have been discharged just 68 times. The Commissioner says the figures represent a massive drop. Shibzue, DHK News.
The West Australian coroner has ordered the head of Border Protection Command to appear at the next hearing of the Coronial inquest into the Christmas Island boat tragedy, which led to the death of 50 asylum seekers. Moit Muzahid has more.
Coroner Alastair Hope issued the direction to Rear Admiral Timothy Barrett after expressing frustration at the continued delays in the preparation of witness statements from key border protection personnel. The coroner is investigating the Christmas Island boat tragedy where up to 50 asylum seekers died. Mr. Hope told the directions hearing in Perth that he had wanted statements from 7 key witnesses, including the Rear Admiral, by mid-January. However, he still has not received them after 2 months and 2 further hearings. Counsel for the Commonwealth told the court that the statements were being finalised and would be forwarded on the 23rd of March. Rear Admiral Barrett has been directed to appear at the next hearing on the 30th of March. Moik Zahid, DHK News.
An empty commuter train in Melbourne has slipped off its tracks and ploughed into a bank building. The train smashed through the wall late on Wednesday, littering everywhere with bricks after overshooting the stop at the end of the railway, according to an emergency worker. An investigation into the cause of the accident is underway.
The Dalai Lama has stepped down this Thursday as a Tibetan exile leader. Dalai is famous for his peaceful resistance towards the Chinese Communist government. He says the time has come for his replacement by a freely elected leader.
The Dalai Lama, whose more significant role is as the movement's spiritual leader, said he would seek an amendment allowing him to resign his political office when the exiled Tibetan parliament meets next week. The Dalai was 15 when he was appointed the head of state in 1950, after Chinese troops moved into Tibet. He fled his homeland in 1959 after a failed uprising against Chinese rule. The 75-year-old Nobel Peace Prize winner has long talked of stepping down. from what is a largely ceremonial role, while maintaining his more important position as the spiritual figurehead of the Tibetan movement. Despite his advancing age and several health scares, the Dalai Lama maintains a punishing travel schedule as the global face of the Tibetan struggle. He is scheduled to visit Fremantle this June. Moik Wazahid, DHK News.
That was our reporter Moik Mazahid reporting. Now we interrupt you with the latest news developing about the massive 8.9 magnitude earthquake that rocked Japan. At least 1,000 people have been killed and many more are missing. The earthquake also triggered a tsunami wave across the Pacific. The quake was around 8,000 times more powerful than the devastating Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand last month and one of the largest ever recorded. It hit at 2:46 local time and unleashing a tsunami that reached heights of more than 20 feet and crashed into the eastern coast of Japan. The quake was followed by at least 12 powerful aftershocks. We'll have more details later as the story develops.
In Libya, the government troops are closing in on the rebels as they capture the strategic town of Zawiya. On the other hand, a group of people have occupied a house in London that belongs to the Libyan dictator's second son. Braden Edwards has the story.
Squatters have taken over a house thought to belong to the second son of the Libyan dictator. A group calling themselves Topple the Tyrants occupied the £10 million house in Hampstead Garden suburb in North London. The group have vowed to remain in place until the property's assets are returned to the Libyan people, according to reports. The group said the property was managed by the Gaddafi family through a holding company registered in the British Virgin Islands. On the other hand, there has been another day of fierce fighting in Libya, with Muammar Gaddafi's forces appearing to strengthen their hold over key towns in the east and west. In the strategic town of Zawiya, west of the capital Tripoli, there are reports of a bloodbath after days of relentless shelling by government forces. Reports say there are dead bodies strewn throughout the city, and regime supporters say the government is now back in control. Braden Edwards, DHK News.
The Space Shuttle Discovery has landed in Florida after a final mission to the International Space Station. It ended a 27-year flying career for NASA's most traveled spaceship. It will now be prepared for a display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. NASA is preparing for an uncertain future as the US ended the 30-year shuttle program due to high operating costs. America wants to free up funds to begin work on new spaceships that can travel to the moon, asteroids and the other destinations beyond station's orbits.
Time for sports now with Jeremy Mills. What a great performance from Sri Lanka in the Cricket World Cup.
That's right, Ivan and Anna. Sri Lanka has recorded the fourth highest stand for any wicket in a one-day international on Thursday, scoring 282 before they were parted. Thuranga was eventually out for 133, caught by Elton Chigumbura off Chris Mapufu in the 45th over, and Dilshan on 144 followed shortly afterwards, caught by Chigumbura off Prosper Utsaya. The duo sailed past the previous World Cup best for a first wicket stand of 194 made by Pakistan's Saeed Anwar and Wajula Watsai against New Zealand in Manchester in 1999. Sri Lanka was put into bat by Zimbabwe in a game where victory for the co-host would guarantee a quarter-final victory place. Fevola revealed to Channel 9's AFL Footy show that he attempted suicide after an argument with his wife. The 30-year-old said there was an incident which prompted him to enter a rehabilitation clinic, although he did not enter the clinic until days later, after a drunken New Year's Eve tangle with police, which eventually led to his sacking from the Brisbane Lions. That's all the sports, and have a great weekend.
You too, Jeremy. To the national weather now. Showers in Sydney and Canberra, mostly sunny in Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. Mostly cloudy in Hobart and possible thunderstorms in Darwin.
And that's DHK News for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy evening. Good night.
Good night.